Eddington, directed by Ari Aster, is one of my most favorite films of the year and my most favorite of Ari Aster's films. In today's video, I'm really going to dive into it. I think Ari Aster is trying to say with Eddington, and how I think the 1 year forward, that whole ending sequence really is the culmination of the film. And I'm going to split this up into two sections. Section 1, the tragedy of Joe Cross, and section 2, the tragedy of Eddington. Starting off with the tragedy of Joe Cross. So starting off with section 1, Joe Cross is our main protagonist of the film. And now, if you just saw him on the surface, if this movie wasn't written that well, he would just feel very one-dimensional, and you wouldn't be rooting for him, right? Because he does a lot of very bad things in the film. But the script is really well written, and Ari Aster is able to make you sympathize with Joe. And it really is, at the root, his relationship and his care for his community. Where, yes, he does plenty of terrible things throughout the film and tons of things that I disagree with, but you're able to humanize him, and it doesn't demonize him because you show how much he cares for his community, despite him not being able to compose himself in an intelligent way to display his care for his community in a way that he just hurts the people around him, such as his wife, where he finally decides he's going to run for mayor. And he ends in one of his points for attacking Ted Garcia is calling him a rapist, and that he basically went after his wife, played by Emma Stone. And now that makes his wife basically turn away from Joe, and it doesn't help him at all. It basically completely backfires on him, again showing how he's not built for this political career. He's not smart enough. He can't compose himself in a way that he really displays that he cares about his community, because Ted Garcia certainly is not a good person. I mean, he has been completely taken over and manipulated by big tech in the form of Warren, which is basically the representative of Solid Gold Magikarp, as he's coming down into Eddington to basically groom Ted Garcia or whoever's in control at that point to be completely tech first, putting that into the town of Eddington. And so you have Joe Cross, who, if he was able to compose himself well, maybe things could have been much different, but he's not. So things continue to escalate. He continues to make things worse, and he makes everything he turns everything up to 11 because of the way he handles things. He ends up killing Ted. He kills Ted's son, and then it basically turns into a complete shootout with people that I interpreted as people that were sent down from the big tech Solid Gold Magikarp to basically come take him out and keep the town of Eddington under control, so that the data center can continue to be built. And then we see him at the very end of the film in a vegetative state, not being able to, because, like, again, in this previous film, in the larger part of the film, he was a very loud character, made his opinions known in the best way he could articulate it, which wasn't very well, but he tried to. But now, because of the consequences of his actions previously in the main line of the film, before the 1 year jump, he now has to suffer the consequences, which is he has to sit there and watch his town die around him from the hands of this data center. And then even you have the conditions he's in now, where basically he's being forced to listen to all of his mother-in-law's bullshit conspiracy theorist stuff, and even his caretaker in the house abuses him. He mishandles him. And before this, whenever his mother-in-law would just spout her conspiracy theorist stuff, he could easily just turn it out and just walk away. Here, he can't do that anymore. He's forced to listen, and he has no choice. He can't react. He can just sit there and cry, which is what we see when Vern shows Joe a video where he sees his wife, which he nicknames Rabbit, played by Emma Stone. She is pregnant from Austin Butler's character. And in that point, that is really the most haunting reminder of the consequences and the misfortune, the tragedy that fell under Joe, was him just being able to cry there. Him just whining because he lost everything he cared about over the course of the film with his very rash, very not thinking before doing. He doesn't think, he just does. And how that hurt the people around him, how that affected him. Now he can't do anything. Now his wife is impregnated by another man, and his only reaction is to cry because he's in a vegetative state. He can't do anything. And that is the tragedy of Joe Cross. But now moving on to section 2, the tragedy of Eddington. Now in this section, we're going to do a much more broader look at the town and the society of Eddington as a whole during the time it takes place, in the very hectic time it takes place in the way that big tech and Solid Gold Magikarp and Warren, as kind of a representative, comes down and takes advantage of the town in a time where they were very unsettled, where everybody was very loud, very annoyed, very unstable. The town was very unstable. So then they saw it as the perfect opportunity to sweep down, take advantage of that, and turn it into a way to benefit them. Not anybody within the town. Only Solid Gold Magikarp and the data center, hurting the town of Eddington as a whole. And where you have it's not just the rivalry between the mayoral election of Joe Cross and Ted Garcia, or even beyond that, the COVID mandates, or BLM, or a lot of the things that are going on during that time. It's overarchingly the society of Eddington as a town that was crumbling, and where there was nowhere to go, where everybody was mishandling the situation and was doing nothing but escalating. You had in Solid Gold Magikarp to take advantage of that as a third party and manipulate the groups the best they could in creating the data center. Which, in the final shot of the film, where we are rolling the end credits, and I think that is truly the most haunting scene of the entire film, that really shows the consequences of what happens when a society crumbles in on itself and lets other powers come in and transform it in a way that isn't good for anything other than pure greed. Because in the very beginning, you saw the town of Eddington, this big shot, right? From far away, you see the town of Eddington. Now at the end of the film, you contrast that, where all you can see is the data center. And off in the corner, you can see the town of Eddington, where previously it was just that big shot of the town of Eddington. Now it is the data center, and over in the corner, you can see the town of Eddington. And that is really just a haunting reminder of how big tech overshadowed those smaller areas to create profit and to inciting chaos in a form of sending down what I first interpreted as just Antifa. Then after thinking about it, it's probably just big. I mean, think about it, right? Ted Garcia is gone. That was the figurehead of Solid Gold. That was basically the figurehead of big tech in Eddington. He's gone. So to fill up that power vacuum and to still make their plans go forward, they send in the Antifa guys, the guys that basically went in as Antifa to basically just stir more chaos and more hysteria in the town of Eddington that led to that data center taking power. But still, that final shot, I really think, culminates this entire film in a way that is a haunting reminder of a way that societal collapse. And when, as Joe Cross, and I don't like Joe Cross as a person, okay? Even though, obviously, Ari Aster does a good job of humanizing him, he says something that I think rings very true. We need to free each other's hearts. I mean, not in the exact context of which he says it, but just as a broad term, he isn't wrong. Because he said, being at war with your, I'm going to try doing my best Joe Cross impression, ready? The cost of being at war with your neighbors, we need to free each other's hearts. And I think that sort of rings true. Because all of them being at war with each other, not being able to see the gray in this situation, that this society is being torn apart, and that it's benefiting nobody. Like, yes, you may disagree with what the other person is saying, but when you lose that sense of community, all that's left is outside powers to come in and kick the society while it's down, and just hurts everybody in the process. And I'm going to add in just a few notes here, just because I thought it's worth mentioning that, like, you have the video that you see Warren showing Joe, and that is a video of the kid who basically joined BLM as to get closer to his to a girl he had a crush on that was very passionate about BLM, and basically him then completely doing a 180, becoming this right-wing commentator, influencer, has this podcast, has this whole platform. And we saw it became very lucrative for him as he had a house and all that we can only assume came from the podcast and becoming that right-wing symbol influencer and that. So then just seeing how his character just symbolizes as a whole just the group of people who aren't dedicated to a certain cause or set of ideals. They only follow what benefits them at that time. Whether it is getting the girl, as we saw in the main part of the film, or later on, a year later, where it is him becoming this right-wing influencer that became very lucrative, gave him a platform that people will listen to. He gets sponsors, he gets all this money. He gets the platform to meet with these very powerful people, as we saw in a picture that we can assume to probably be like a governor, like senator or something. You know, so that is basically my interpretation of that. And also that just plays into the tragedy of Eddington as a whole, where you kind of see how not being allied to a certain cause, being manipulated, or switching up your causes or your ideals on a moment's notice can weaken the community that you're supposedly being a part of when you're switching up all the time, because then other people can come in and manipulate to lead to things like the data center happening. And I did my review of Eddington like previously, but I don't like that video that I made. I should have given it more time to sit before I talked about it. But yeah, so I love Eddington. Genuinely, I love the film. And yeah, that really is about it. See ya.